hamper their chances of making it back to the playoffs.
Well, I was bringing that up because it's just one of the weird things that we've seen from this team this season. That also adds to the fact that you mentioned the Cardinals. The Pirates took 2 out of 3 at Busch Stadium last weekend. So that trend of giving the Cardinals a hard time kind of continues. But had to point that out just because it was an odd set of circumstances to see this team of all teams, which for most of the season couldn't seem to muster offense. Even if you hand it to them, they couldn't seem to keep it in their fingers when all of a sudden they just bust out for a huge night. Want to shift over a little bit because there's been a lot of discussion in the past maybe 48 hours or so about Gregory Polanco, him being put on outright waivers. No one claims him. He's back in the lineup, and he becomes the hero tonight with the big base hit that puts the Pirates on top. So just a really, once again, I don't want to overuse the word weird, but just the sequence of events the past 48 hours with Gregory Polanco has even been somewhat interesting, if not weird.
Yeah, and I hope that, after the game, Derek Shelton or Polanco or any of his teammates don't try to make I told you so, fans should mind their own business or pipe down and, not get on to him for this poor season that he's had while he's making $11 million. I don't think, me personally, short of fans doing something at the ballpark that is derogatory, inflammatory, inappropriate, to the point where there are things that, you would look at objectively and say, this is just poor conduct and fans should be ejected from the ballpark for. Short of that, I don't think any Pirate player should be criticizing fans for how they boo or what they chant or what they say when the team is 35 games under 500 and a guy making $11 million is hitting around 200. If anything, my opinion, Polanco should have come out today and said, you know what? I'm appreciative and happy that we even have fans at our games. We're a last-place team. We're mired in a terrible year. Any fan that still comes out and supports this team, I'm in favor of. And even if they're hard on me or critical of me, I want to say thank you to those fans. That's how he should have played it. He should not have said, this is what I do to put food on the table for my family, which is ridiculous because he's made $35 million on this contract, Josh. And if the Pirates decide, which they will, a couple of months from now, that they're done with Gregory Polanco, they're going to give him a $3 million parting shot to say goodbye. We don't want you to play baseball for us anymore. So I don't think Gregory Polanco is going to struggle to put Thanksgiving dinner on the table in November.
Actually, he'll probably put it on a few different tables if you're really doing the math. But no, to your point, I honestly, I'm one of the people that honestly believes that if a guy does well, you say he does well. If a guy doesn't do well, you say he doesn't do well. And you mentioned it, the contract that he's due to receive this year, $11 million. He's got a $12.5 million buyout or $12.5 million option next year, $13.5 million a year after that. But let's take it back a couple years before that. This is a guy who was on the front of a magazine as the top prospect in baseball that was supposed to be part of the Pirates' dream outfield half a decade ago. He was supposed to be the guy that, for all intents and purposes, completed the whole set and put this team over the top and maybe reverse all of that, infamy that we saw from this organization for 2+ decades. He was supposed to be that guy that helps complete that cycle and turn that tide. We saw it for 3 years, and then it left and never came back. But if there was one guy who might have been able to help bring it back if he was able to reach his potential, it was Gregory Polanco, and that just did not happen. And I think, honestly, when we look back on his time, he's going to be the guy who had all the potential in the world, who had all the talent in the world that scouts saw, had the big body, had the athleticism, and that was just the one kernel in the pot that just did not pop. We got to take a break. We're taking your phone calls, 412-575-2600 on the Borders and Borders hotline. We're talking Steelers when we come back. Got a couple questions for Pony about tomorrow night's game. We'll get to those, and we'll get to your questions as well. Stick around.